Hello, all. This is Ashley Hubner from Confessions of a Coach, and I'm here today with Dr. Frank Rudnesky. He is a former principal and an author of Fired Up Leadership and his newest book, Fired Up Teachership, that just came out today. And he is here to share his wisdom with us about instructional coaching. Dr. Frank, I want to first kind of talk about a little bit of instructional leadership and growth on campuses. And I don't know, in the atmosphere that you worked in, if you had a specific role for instructional leaders or if that fell on you as the campus leader, and how did you kind of manage and navigate that? What did that look like?
Well, first, thank you for having me on today. I appreciate talking to educators as much as possible because we're in a spot right now, and we need to pull each other out of that spot. I mean, I don't know how far you want me to go back, but I started teaching back in the olden days, all right, in the last century, and it was when I started as a teacher, mentorship coaching was informal at best. For instance, if I didn't have someone across the hallway that kind of took me under her wing and showed me things like where the bathroom was, where did I eat my lunch, et cetera, then it would have been a totally different experience for me. Now in the state of New Jersey, as we have evolved into this century, mentorship is a formal process, meaning that new teachers are required to have mentors, and the schools that can and have it set up properly have more of a coaching situation than a mentorship situation. But the best scenario, when I was an administrator, when I was a principal, was to have as many mentors and go-to people and coaches as possible. For instance, the non-formal coaching, or the coaching that wasn't really required by the bureaucracy of the state, we would set up. We would have technology integration or technology influence coaches that would touch base with a number of different people, although they were also in the classroom. So that wasn't just their job, but it was part of the collegiality, the culture that we created. So if we decipher everything I just said, culture matters. So the culture, the climate and culture part is the biggest component. They are the biggest components of coaching or mentorship, because it becomes part of who you are as a school. So your school is recognized as a leadership school. When somebody walks in the front door, nobody has to come out of the closet and say, hey, we're a leadership school, we're a coaching school, we're a positive climate and culture school, because you'll feel it immediately. Maybe not so much now, because schools are at best a combination, a hybrid of in-person and virtual, but you can feel it on the walls. For instance, if you look behind me, you have a perception of me. You could see, hey, well, this guy's into something fun, not sure maybe what it is, but part of what I do. So that speaks for the building that we want to create. It speaks for the culture that we want to create. So importantly, when everyone has that attitude, you don't have to wait. Hey, hello, Mrs. Smith, I'm having problems with this program or this app or this whatever, but people next door will help you. People across the hall will help you. We're all kind of in this together type of attitude, type of culture.
I like that.
I know you saw High School Musical, right? January 2006. You know the words to every song. Well, we're all in it together, and that's the attitude that we have to have. And is it, everybody's busy, so when you can hit the pause button and be a helper or get helped, it's going to speak volumes. And hey, how do you do that? Well, that culture in your classroom. If when I was in the classroom, I figured out early, back in the you weren't born, you probably weren't born in 1986, right?
Yeah, I was
You
one.
you were not. Well, anyway, that's when I started teaching, and one of the reasons I got hired because there was this new technology coming in to the classroom. No research on it, but they were Apple PCs, and there was research just started called the Apple Classrooms of Tomorrow. But anyway, so what I figured out early on is that uh, climate and culture matter, and if there's only one facilitator in the classroom, then it's going to drag and drag and drag, and the students and the teachers will never reach their highest level of what they're able to do. They'll never reach their potential. So I figured out, like, hey, Gary in front of a computer can extract and facilitate better than I could. So Gary, go for it. Getting back to the coaching and the mentoring thing. Hey, I'm stepping over here so Mrs. Smith can help me. Somebody take over. Hey, eighth grader. Hey, 13, 14-year-old. What do you got? And they have it. And if you empower them to become facilitators, they're thrilled to do it. And now you're differentiating according to a lot of different things, but one thing, you're differentiating according to passion. Some people may call it interests, but there's a whole lot going on, and it starts as soon as you cross the threshold of your building. It's called leadership.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot. That was a lot. I just laid out there.
Well, I think that idea of collaborative culture and growing together as a community is a mindset that you have to, as a leader, it starts from the top and then it goes down. And you have to instill that mindset and that vision with your staff and with your teachers, especially if you don't have support roles, like you mentioned with the technology integration or instructional coaching. I think back to when I was a third grade teacher and we didn't have coaches at that time in the district. And we leaned on each other. We all knew each other's strengths. My strength happened to be math. So if there was it was about the time the math standards changed in our state. And so if it was a new lesson that none of us had taught and we were trying to figure out how to teach it to the way the standards were, it was kind of my niche. So I would model the lesson for the whole third grade. All the teachers saw the lesson and then they would go back and reiterate that in their classrooms. Like we had pods and we would go out there. We had another teacher who was really strong at reading. So we would let her teach the reading minimum lesson. And then we would go back in our classrooms and facilitate that. So we found a way to have that instructional growth without that role, but we leaned on each other. So you being a leader and motivating that on your campus, what would be your biggest leverage strategy or technique to help grow teachers as you worked with them?
Well, and empower them. What you just said speaks volumes. So when you empower people and they know that it's okay to take calculated, creative risks, they know they're not going to be in isolation, they know that they have your support, then amazing starts happening. People have a voice. And I was really in shock when I started researching some of the things in my books about how many people did not consider themselves as leaders, but they 100% associated leadership with a title. They would say things like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get into school leadership," and I would say, "Well, aren't you working in a school? Aren't you in school leadership?" Because my perception is, you cross that threshold of a school, whether you're a crossing guard, a custodian, a teacher, an aide, a principal, you have to accept a certain level of leadership. And if you don't, then this synergy isn't going to happen. So it's okay to have too many ideas, but it's not okay to not have enough ideas. And sometimes, there's always a plan B, there's always a plan C. And with technology that there has to be, because something is going to not be perfect. So the biggest component, if I had to have one component, it's empowerment. But people have to know what that looks like. So that has to be modeled. So sometimes you have to ask, hey, Mr. Jones, will you do me a favor? We're having this scaffolding meeting, and I need like a 5-minute tech bite of this thing that I saw you do in class, which was amazing. And people don't get to visit your classroom like I do every day. So can you give me 5 minutes on it? And well, you know what? That empowers people, because people are important and people need to know that they're important and appreciated. The same thing with those kids in your classroom. The same exact thing. When you give a kid a voice, when you give a student a voice and empower them, so amazing things are happening. You know what? You're still going to have the same number of barriers, just different types of barriers. And if you can be proactive and eliminate and control and influence what you can, then wow, you're working on things like teaching and learning instead of classroom management.
Right. I love that idea of empowering them and giving them a voice. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was adding value to teachers. I think that does add value to them, but I know you've also recently written a book, Fired Up Teachership, and trying to motivate teachers about why they started and their passion. So tell us a little bit about that book and how your leadership role of adding value to your teachers helped you kind of put this together.
It's you know what, in both of the books, one of the biggest components is you taking care of you. So let's say you had an official capacity of mentoring or coaching a teacher or a certain number of teachers. Now, the first thing you say is that, hey, look, let's take out your books, but you have to allow people to understand that the most important thing, especially now since it's magnified, is taking care of you in body, mind, heart, and spirit. And when people know that you care and that they should care about themselves, then production increases, teaching and learning increases. So, and you have to do the same thing. You have to do what you preach too. Now, I don't know how your day went so far, but my day went with, crossing off what I'm doing for my body, what I'm doing for my mind. Still got to do spirit, and I'm working on that passion like right now. But it's that's what I've seen is the biggest component, is that you're not jumping ahead, but you're pausing. And does it take longer? Maybe right now, but in the longevity of things, it shortens up the process, because when I'm at school, I'm at school. And when I'm at home, I need to be at home.
Mhm.
And this is what I'm finding everywhere. It's like, you know what, the bureaucracy and this other stuff happens. And when you're not there, believe me, nobody is going to do your work. So you don't have to worry about it. Your inbox always full. But how's your body? How's your mind? How's your heart? How's your spirit? Are they filled up as well? So and there are certain little habits that you can do that will turn into being a better teacher, because now you have this empathy, and you and I talked briefly about some diversity things that you're working on, and that empathy training is a big part of it. So empathy comes in many forms, and so does diversity. So you have to be that person that you want around you, and a lot of times we forget to be that person. So if you're
Mhm.
going to change anything, sometimes you have to change you. And sometimes the teachers, the educators, the administrators, anybody that you're coaching has to understand that as well. You know what? It's okay to be sad right now, but sadness isn't your long-term goal. You know what? Every second of every day, I'm not happy, but it's my goal every single day. And when you put it all together and you connect with you and I never would have been connected if it wasn't for the pandemic. We wouldn't
Uh-huh.
be having this conversation right now. We wouldn't be. We would be off doing something else. But because look at this positive that we've just taken, and that you've given us this opportunity to give other people a opportunity.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, when you start with yourself, and then let those people you're coaching know that, you know what, this this is where we're starting, and this is where you need to start when those kids are looking at you on a screen, or you're walking into that classroom, or they're walking by your classroom. Think about it. If we're totally in person, how many people do you know that aren't in your classroom? Meaning
Uh-huh.
students, meaning teachers in your hallway. It's, walk through the cafeteria. It freaks people out. Like the students, like, wow, what's he doing in here? And then you sit down at their table, and you open up a sandwich, like, wow, dude, that dude eats, and he eats lunch. Wow, this is amazing. But it's those baby steps that turn into bigger and better steps later.
Uh-huh.
So I hope I answered your question, but it's it's the process.
Yeah. I think there's some big takeaways there for me. One, valuing yourself and taking care of yourself. You're modeling for your staff and your students how they should also take care of themselves, and you're empowering them to do that, like you said before. And then the habits. It's funny that you talked about that, because I've been kind of focusing on habits recently. Thinking about, I didn't want to do the whole New Year's resolution thing. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be, everybody does it and they quit, so why even try? So I wasn't going to do it. But a couple of things just keep popping up in my life that keep going back to these habits. And I think about the bad habits that we set unintentionally because we don't choose to do good habits, and kind of reflecting on, that process that makes a habit is, 21 days or 2 weeks or whatever of doing the same action, and then trying to break it when it's a bad habit is a lot harder than starting a good habit. And even that conversation of going through the hallways, like that, a habit right there. When you go through the hallways, how do you greet people? Are you
Mm.
complaining about your day so far? Are you saying, hey, it's good to see you, hope you're having a great day? And I think about the habits that we can get into during this time of the complaining and the negativity, and how can we break those and turn that into positivity. So I think just small steps, like you said, leading into a bigger impact of making good choices and turning into good habits. So,
And that's a perfect, spot on. And both books, Fired Up Leadership and Fired Up Teachership, both speak to that. It's that, okay, now let's say when you're setting your goals, normally, if you're not a goal setter, and I have been for a very long time now, I early in my career, I read a couple Stephen Covey books, and that kind of
mhm,
changed my paradigm a little bit. But it's if you're thinking of, okay, a New Year's resolution as I'm going on a diet because I want to eat healthier, then it's never, ever, ever going to work. But if you think of it as a way of life, then I need to eat more spinach. It's a true story. I need to eat more spinach. So in the morning, I've been just gotten into the habit of grabbing a handful of spinach and putting it in my protein shake. And there it is. But then I finally did that once,
mhm.
or for 1 week, or only for 1 month, or only for 2 months. Then, hey, guess what? I'm having this conversation again a year from now. But if it becomes a habit, and that's how you can train your mind to do certain things. For instance, when you get up, what's your first thought? What's your first thought? And some of us don't have a luxury of, some of us hear dogs barking and kids yelling, and smoke alarms going off and crazy stuff going on in our lives. But if you can still train yourself to take that first step of gratitude. Now that second step might be your foot might be stuck in cement, but if that first step is filled with gratitude and love, then wow, maybe that second step isn't stuck and cement so much. So that's what you can control. Now
Mhm.
it's even like we talked about my spirit world being at the beach and the boardwalk, and it's I have a goal of riding my skateboard down the boardwalk once a week. And this time of year, it's cold, and sometimes that north wind blows you back, but nobody's there. So it's like me, the boardwalk, the beach, the waves, the salt air. And it's like, wow, this is, for some people it's church or synagogue or mosque. And, for me, it's different. And for you, it's different. And for those new teachers, and for those teachers that are burnt out, and for people that are burnt out in general, if you can do it, and just having a conversation about it, I'm making it sound easier than it is, because to get there, to get from point A to point B could be hard. And you have all these other things going on. And it's okay to sit on the couch and binge watch TV once in a while too. Nothing wrong with that either. But if you put it all together and you start leading that fired up life, then the positives are becoming a lot better and bigger than some of the negatives that you cannot control. And we're modeling that behavior.
Amen.
Amen. So be it.
Well, I just want to thank you for being here today and sharing your wisdom with us. I am very excited about your new book for teachers, and I hope that those that are out there that watch this and hear this will go buy that and read it and use the lessons and the information that's in there to help equalize your life and find that balance of work, life, and taking care of yourself. So much information today and good thoughts to think on and help yourself refresh and rejuvenate. Did you have any last words?
Yes, Ashley, thank you. Both are available on Amazon, and this is what I can promise you. I can promise you that if you do buy the book, and most of the money goes to charity anyway, but and you want to have a book study or you want to have a conversation, we'll do it. I promise you. Direct message me or get a hold of me. I'm very easy to get a hold of, and we'll do that. I've done book studies on Padlet, for instance, for groups of people, or for the people you work with, or for even just you. So thank you. I appreciate you. Peace and love always win. We got your back.